Okay, item number 17, expenditures from the Tree Trust Fund. Recommendation is that City Council adopt a supplemental budget resolution returning unencumbered funds previously allocated from the Tree Fund pending an assessment of tornado damage to the trees impacted by the tornado on February 23rd, 2016. Need a motion? A motion and a second. I do have one card on this. Councilwoman Myers, you're recognized.
Right. Well, since we were here last, we've had a great tragedy in this city. And the lives of many people have been horribly impacted by the tornado that hit the north end of the city. And one of the things, aside from the homes that have been damaged, the lives that have been impacted, are the trees. And I don't know how many trees went down during the tornado, but I will tell you that the damage to the trees, starting from the south side of Creighton Road, through Dunmire Wood, down 9th Avenue, down Tippin, many neighborhoods have lost fabulous heritage oak trees, huge trees. Many of the trees that did not go down have been so damaged that they are going to die. I have provided council with some pictures. One house, this is on Lansing. The picture you have is on Lansing. And you see what it looks like now. The next picture you have attached to it is what it looked like before the tornado. And that tree is typical of the trees that went down during that tornado all over the north end of the city. The next picture, the third picture, is me with a measuring tape across a heritage oak tree that's over 3 feet wide.
Yeah, I can't read the numbers on tape measure on this.
I'm telling you, it's over 3 feet, though. I'm sorry about that. Just have to take my word for it. I'm an attorney, so you have to take my word for it. I see Mr. Fleming out there just having a great time. But this is typical. I wanted you to see, this is typical of the trees that we have lost. We have 2 parks over there, one in Dunmire Woods, one in Camelot, that lost a lot of trees, and particularly the park in Camelot was a passive park. It's one of the jewels of that neighborhood. People enjoyed walking through the woods there, and they had their little hiking trail there. And that storm did a tremendous amount of damage in that park. What I want is originally I'd asked for a moratorium on any more funds being spent from the Tree Trust Fund until we have an assessment of the tree damage as a result of that tornado. I would like to see the remainder of the Tree Trust Fund, we're talking about around $207,000, to be used to remediate the damage that has been done to our parks and to our neighborhoods. So I'm asking the council to basically, this would be a budgetary resolution which would return $207,000 basically to the back to the Tree Trust Fund. In other words, that amount is still allocated to be spent this year, and it would not be spent pending a tree audit, damage audit, and also a strategy for reforesting and rebeautification of the impacted areas. So that's basically the motion. It's just a budgetary resolution.
Okay. Councilwoman Canaway.
Yes, but a couple of additional things that Councilmember Myers added on to her in her speech in reference to the recommendation is not on there. I mean, it says pending an assessment of tornado damage to impacted trees by the tornado, and then she added some other things about the assessment and design and all of that. That's not on here. And so I just want to remind the council that once you put a hold on those dollars, things like Aviation Discovery Park, Bay Bluffs, the Bayview Center, all of those projects will be on hold. All of those projects will be on hold. Those are something that we already passed, and I know that there are emergencies that we have to deal with and address, and I don't have a problem with an assessment and finding out what the tornado damage is, but there's no time frame attached to this at all as to when it's going to be done, who is going to be responsible for getting it done. We have not brought anything like that up front in dealing with this. And so, and I want to know about, the tree damage as well. I mean, 6 months ago, I had my huge heritage oak fall over and slam into to a car, but it was on private property. So I would like to know whether or not how much of it is private property and how much of it is public property, and some of those other issues that go along with this. So if we take this and put this on hold, that means that we have only spent $143,000, and all of the other projects are on hold without a date at all as to when or if any of those dollars, as well as whether or not we can find other sources. I mean, the tree trust fund, if this is a huge replacement of trees, then it may take more than the tree trust fund when you talk about the cost of those trees. So that has to be a consideration as well, of other sources to get dollars from as well. So there's no time limit here, no date. We don't know who's going to do this assessment, when it's going to get done, none of that. So I have problems with it.
Thank you. Councilman Jahar.
Ms. Canada pretty much stated what I was going to say and answered my question for me, actually, so I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question for either the administrator or for Mr. Barker. I'll ask you. Do we know what is the balance in the tree planting trust fund that's not been encumbered? It's probably in his report.
Council President, I believe that was in the materials that were provided to you.
I have it at $207,531.14.
That's the balance that has not been encumbered?
Yes.
$207,000?
And the total balance, and then the remaining balance that wasn't appropriated for this year was approximately $181,000. That gave you that total of $388,000.
Okay, so the amount that's not been budgeted, that's just sitting there that can be spent, that's not been budgeted, is $181,000? Is that what you said?
Approximately.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Myers.
Well, I'll tell you what, this vote is going to decide for me a lot of things about my future. Because I tell you what, when I look at what has been approved here for this tree fund, I don't remember about voting for this. None of it in District 2. And yet, most of the money in that tree trust fund has come out of my district from clear cutting. Even the money that you all got from clear cutting Davis Highway and Airport that I asked be put back into that district isn't on here. None of these projects, in fact, a large percentage of these projects are in District 7 and District 6. So, I mean, I can understand why Councilwoman Wynn may not be in favor of this, but it's the right thing to do. Not only have you clear-cut that district, now we have this tornado that has done damage to hundreds of 200-300-year-old trees, and you don't want to. The purpose of the tree fund should not be beautification. It should be reforestation. And 2 years ago, the Tree Trust Fund had $600,000 in it, and we're down to this little piddly amount of money that really, if there were any justice and equity on this city council and in this government, would go back into the north end of the city. We don't have parks, we don't have community centers in the north end of the city other than Gull Point. You don't want us to have anything. Now let me tell you what, anybody on this city council who's running for mayor, when you come over there to the north end of the city, I'm going to ask you, what have you done for us? What have you done for us? This is the right thing to do. This is about justice. This is about equity. This money needs to be put aside and used for what it's intended to be used for, and that is reforestation. And didn't expect to get support from this council on this because it might benefit the north end of the city, and we don't do the north end of the city. That's all I've got to say.
Okay, I'm kind of getting deja vu a little bit about the tree fund because the reason I didn't vote for the budget, there were two things, both of which this council voted for. One was to fund, well, they didn't vote for it initially, the fire station. We've now voted for that. It had to put it in with another project. The other was the tree fund because I didn't want to put all that money in the budget, spending these tree fund dollars. But, you know, we had that discussion. We looked at the list. We knew what was in that list. And this council voted on that. There's $181,000 sitting there that hasn't been budgeted that we can use for the impacts. So I'm not going to support the supplemental budget resolution because I believe that this council voted on those projects. We have money there, $181,000. And, you know, it was obviously a terrible thing that happened in that part of our city. There were other damages throughout our city. I had to go 311 to get some of the debris cleaned up from right across from the bayou from where the mayor's house was. There were straight line winds or tornado or something hit there. The first time we had the bad winds when it hit Eastgate Shopping Center, there was a tremendous amount of damage, huge oak trees knocked down there too. So I think there's needs across the city. Obviously in this case there are more in the north part of the city, but for us just to abandon these other projects that are in here in favor of that, when we have $181,000 sitting there that we can spend, I don't think is the best course of action. Councilwoman Canawin.
Yes, Ms. Councilman Myers, the 207 that you use, but if the $180,000 is what you want to hold and not use, I would be able to support that.
Okay, well, I'll amend it.
Okay, I would be able to support that because the other projects would be able to go through. That means that we would not have any money in the trust fund until we get a decision, but I would support that if that would...
Okay, I'm going to amend the resolution to provide the $181,000 that's left in the tree trust fund
I'll support that.
be used for tree remediation in the north end of the city. And that includes not just my district. One of the hardest hit areas is in Dr. Wu's district, in the Eau Claire area.
Councilman Tahar.
So just for clarification, Ms. Myers, you're saying that the 181 that's left over, you'd like to use for reforestation, essentially, right?
Yes.
But you're specifying only in the north end of the city.
For the impacted areas, that would be primarily south of, north of Creighton Road.
But and like Councilman Bear, I drive by every day, and there was a place that was impacted right just north of Cervantes, and I'd like to see some of it go there. So I'll support it if we just say we're going to use it to do reforestation like you want to do, but I don't necessarily like the only in one part of the city. I think that, there's lots of issues. Yeah, I understand there's lots of stuff going on. None of that, most of that's not in District 3. So, I mean, I'm not a district person. I think that stuff needs to be, we need to look at the city as a whole and decide. And I think a lot of it will go to that area because it was hit really hard, but I don't want to earmark all of it for that area. So that's just...
Okay, well, you don't have to support it then, but I think it's the right thing to do. And that is a very large area. The north end of the city includes that whole area from primarily north of Creighton Road. It doesn't have to be exactly north of Creighton Road. There are other areas that were impacted by that tornado. But, when you look at this list of projects, it is very, very skewed, as it always has historically been, towards certain areas of the city.
But you're talking about the items that we voted on in the budget,
I didn't
correct?
vote for it. I didn't vote for it. You voted for it, but I didn't. I did not vote for this. I wouldn't have voted for this.
Councilman Wingate.
Going back to your pictures here, the first picture here, how would this be affected by what we're trying to do here?
Well, that's a good question. And that's a discussion we need to have. That's why I'd like to put a hold on this money, on the expenditure of this money. I would first allocate it to our parks in that area, and also to any areas where we have a right-of-way. So you raise the issue of planting trees on right-of-ways in front of people's properties. And I think that is something we need to have a discussion about, how we do that. Because, we've done it, and the city has put lots of trees on right-of-ways in front of private property, with the condition, that the owner of the property will take care of the trees. But right now, I just want to allocate those funds so that they will be used for that impacted area. There's not a lot that we can do to help people in these types of situations. We can pick up the debris. We can't repair their homes. But we do have this money in this tree fund that we can use to at least address the issue of the trees that they've lost in their areas.
I'm going to get to you in just a minute, Councilwoman Canada-Wynn, but just a thought. It just feels like we're kind of trying to ram this through and get something done. I almost think it's something we need to talk a little bit more about, and I hate to say it, but have a workshop about it and look at how we can allocate these funds, these tree funds that are remaining, to do the best good in the wake of the disaster that we've had. Is that something that you might consider, Councilwoman Myers?
Well, I have wanted to have a discussion about the tree fund when we had $600,000 in it. All these projects here, I don't know are they planting crepe myrtles? Is it used for reforestation? I doubt it. Who's making the decision about what to buy, what to plant? So I think that we can have that discussion, but I think that we should go ahead and approve this.
Okay.
And then we can discuss what to do with it later.
Councilwoman Canada-Wynn?
Yes, in dealing with the disasters like we have, and And these dollars, once we have that discussion, we're going to find out just how expensive trees are and just how many trees that we'll be able to buy. However, if we don't want the money to be used for something else, we would just need to be able to set it aside, because if not, then it will go and dwindle. Normally for us to do a workshop takes 3 and 4 months. By that time, we are in hurricane season. So again, I think the compromise is a good one.
Thank you.
Councilman Tahar.
Yeah, my only concern is that if we earmark $181,000 for that, and they get this survey done, and they come back and say, okay, it's going to cost $102,000 to do what you want to do, a reforestation, blah, 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 then do we get to go back and say, okay, well, we'll give you 101, but we want to keep the other one? I'm just afraid that we're going to earmark more money than it's going to take to do what whoever we hire tells us we need to do. And that's we're just sort of blindly saying, yeah, we'll do $181,000 worth of work when we don't even know how much it's going to cost. It may cost $300,000, but I'm just saying it's a complete unknown. So to take money and earmark it towards something that I don't even know what I'm really earmarking it towards is just a little backwards. I would rather have the report and have it say, here's how much money we need, and have Ms. Myers come back and go, here, I want the tree trust fund money for this, and this is what we're going to do. That would make a little more sense to me.
Well, you've already basically spent, over $400,000 and never had that discussion, so, but now that I want this money, and I've been asking for some of this money that y'all have gotten from all the clear cutting back into the areas that have been clear cut, but now you want to have detailed discussions, and took you about 35 minutes to drop $6.5 million for a community center, but when it comes to this little $181,000 to plant some trees in a community that's never had trees planted in it by the city, now we got to make a big deal out of it.
Can you please restate your amended motion?
The amended motion is to set aside this $181,000 that's left unallocated in the tree trust fund, pending a plan by the city to use it to address reforestation in the impacted tornado area.
By the city or by the city council?
By the city council.
Okay. So that would not require a supplemental budget resolution then, would it?
No, no, because, well, I don't know. I'd have to ask Mr. Barker.
He's shaking his head no.
No, okay, because it hasn't been allocated, so it doesn't. Okay.
So what we're saying is we don't want the mayor to spend this money.
That's right. That's what we're saying.
Okay. Because we can't just go spend it on our own.
Right.
Okay. Vice President Spencer.
Thanks. I just want to ask, if I can, directly to Council Member
Yes.
Myers. Does this encumber the tree fund in any way from funding any previous obligations, such as what's happening at the 12th Avenue Oak Tunnel? Is there anything pending there?
No, there's nothing pending.
Ms. Myers?
No, I don't think there's pending anything under the tree tunnel.
Okay, so recent plantings there.
Well, I don't know. You'd have to ask Mr. Olson that. I don't know what He says there's $181 that has not been allocated to anything.
Right.
$181,000.
Well, this shouldn't affect the amount that's been budgeted. I mean, that money is separate from this. This would be money just kind of sitting there. So, okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, we're voting on the amended motion, which is to set aside the $181,000 that's remaining pending a plan from City Council. Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
If the mayor comes up with a plan, he can bring that to us, but
Okay.
it would need city council approval.
Okay. Please vote. Passes 7-0.